Hey folks, Sunny Airy here. So today I'm going to be going through a 26 Fortified Incorporeal Sanguine Darkheart Thicket. So Darkheart, for me, has been this season one of my hardest dungeons, particularly around the second boss, but I've recently been doing a little bit of work on it and it's become an awful lot easier, so hopefully I can share that with you. In terms of my character, stat-wise, again, nothing has changed from the previous videos, so don't need to go through that. Talent-wise, this is definitely one where you do want to be taking Blessing of Spellwarding, and that is primarily for that second boss. There's a couple other places you can use it, potentially. Might as well use it rather than just keeping it available the entire game, but yeah. Also, using Unbound Freedom can be really helpful in here, again, for that second boss. I know there's a lot built around the second boss, but it is pretty rough as a Paladin if you're not doing it quite right, so. Gear-wise, nothing's changed. Damage-wise, looks pretty standard. Yeah, pretty standard. Nothing's really changed. With that said, I will jump into the key. This was done just very quickly with a Fire Mage, Ret Paladin, Outlaw Rogue, and Mistweaver Monk. So, see you in there. So, as with all keys, at the beginning, have a chat with your group, make sure they understand the route. This route has a few skips and things in it, so it's very important to make sure everyone's aware beforehand. You don't want to have mistakes further through. The most dangerous thing for your group in this is the cats. When they jump, they put an equivalent of the old Grievous affix on a person, so they have to be healed above a certain health level, and until that point they keep just losing health as a dot. The thing that you have to focus on as a tank is making sure that you kick or CC as much as possible all of the owls that cast. Basically what they do is they incapacitate the person they're targeting if a successful cast goes through. On the healer, this means that you won't get any healing for 3 or 4 seconds. On the tank, this means that you wander around like a numpty and you have no aggro and your entire group will probably die. We're not including the bear in this first pull because it's Sanguine. I would do in almost any other affix, but Sanguine, it just turns into a mess. There is a patrol of 2, which is you can see in the distance there. They will be joining this pull as and when they get here, but this bear is considerably healthier than them to begin with, so there's no harm in kind of giving it a bunch of priority before they join. Again, it just helps them all die at a similar time, giving them less sanguine potential. So, one very nice trick when pulling a caster pack, have your Divine Toll ready. It will obviously kick them, but it will also silence them for 2 or 3 seconds after the cast goes, after the Avenger Shield hits them. So it will help them move out of a particular position, because they will not be able to recast anything. Despair puts a stacking healing reduction on the tank. It doesn't matter too much because the healer can just dispel it when it gets to a few stacks. The key thing is this Star Shower. So all these red swirlies that are spawning on the ground, if anyone stands in those, it's pretty much a one-shot. If you stand in them and take any other damage at all, it's a one-shot. It'll take off 60-70% of your life if you stand in one. So make sure those are kicked as priority, and then the pull will be much smoother. So the next pull is going to be one of those casters and 2 of these sort of hippogriff things which will charge you. So what you want to do is you want to grab them and you want to put your back against a wall, wait until the charge happens, wait a couple more seconds to see if you can get the other charge to start before you move, and then move. In this case, that did work, which is nice, and now they're pretty much synced up. They're only 1 second between the 2 charges. It keeps it nice and neat for your group. If you move immediately, the slightly desynced charge will then happen, and you'll end up with charges going in different directions. One thing to note about these casters, the guy that just died, sometimes they stay as a caster, sometimes they will turn into a spider instead. Honestly, there really isn't that much difference in terms of danger, they just are handled slightly differently. The spider will put a dispel on people, which has to be dispelled. You can do it as a paladin, it's a poison. If it doesn't do that much damage as it's on, but when it expires, it will do the majority of someone's health. Like, it can one-shot people in a high key, especially on Fortified. So here we need to be wary of where this patrol is. So there's a patrol on the right side there. They're close to another pack. You don't really want to combine them on Sanguine, so we're going to start on this pack. Hopefully, everyone's going to burst it down really quickly. And then as the patrol comes back towards us, assuming no one pulls it with their butt, then we will be able to add it in right at the end of this pull. So again, watch out on those dispels. There is one of those spiders that I mentioned here. And just murder stuff down. Now the mage, unfortunately, is standing a little bit far into the room. And he's got his mirror images far out as well. I believe mirror images can pull. I may be wrong in that, but I believe they can pull. So what we're trying to do here is get this as dead as possible before the other pack joins. There you go, we're good. And there you go, it's a mage pull, but it's fine. No problem. And we got that one as well. So this can happen. This is just an unfortunate. So again, I'm using the Divine Toll there to group everything. And now it's just a case of help the healer, get those initial cat jump bleeds off of people. Keep yourself healthy, pop your defensives as you need them, and now just take your time. So this is a bit more of a mess than usual. Your priority kick is going to be this Ruiner. Make sure that those Star Falls do not go off. With all the other stuff that people have to not stand in and not do here, that's probably going to result in deaths if that goes off. So the dangerous thing here is there's 4 cats. You never want to do a pull with 4 cats. They will jump to someone like that and do huge amounts of their health as damage. You want to make sure that you assist the healer in this. They will probably not be able to do it on their own. And all the people that have, if you see on my party frames there, you've got that sort of white claw icon on the right. That's that debuff from the cat. So you want that to be removed as a priority. So you need to heal people above 90% for that. So here again, you've got 2 of those hippogriffs in charge. You just want to make sure that you point it at a wall, nice and safe. If you are literally stood on the wall, something that can happen, and it happened in a poll earlier, they kind of don't charge. Because there's nowhere they can go, the wall is right in front of them, they just sort of... nothing happens and they turn to look at the tank. What happens though is the damage from the charge is delayed by a second or 2, as if it was happening. And so everyone else thinks, it's safe, it's all good. And then it just randomly kills someone because they got too close to it. It's almost like there's like an aura of death around the hippogriff. So just try and be very aware of it. I would also say that this route is only possible because we have a rogue. You do need a shroud for it. You can do it with an invis pot. Yeah, you can do it with an invis pot, and then you need something like a Mind Soothe or an Imprison from a Vengeance Demon Hunter or something else for the skip later on. So here we are just going to keep this pack kicked and bring it down. So because there's 2 cats in this pack, it's a little dangerous. But there's only 1 kick, so it's pretty easy to move without having it stay behind. The key is you don't want to pull it with one of the other packs that was behind up there, because they're very dangerous. They have cats and they have a bear in them. So it's very important that you make sure everyone hugs the wall on the right when you come down this pathway, and you don't pull the packs on the other side. So it's a bit awkward because it's Sanguine, but I'm going to kind of chain these pulls a bit. So the first bit is mostly dead, 1 remaining very low HP, and then we already brought the patrolling 2 guys, and then as the first pack is almost fully dead, we grab this extra 2 guys on the side. Just keep it chaining, keep it flowing. It's especially helpful when you have low HP mobs, so they're not like a big priority target like the bear, to chain pulls when you have a fire mage. Because the way that fire mage damage works is, especially if they build the ignite build, which they often do, they will build up this ignite. It's basically a dot on a target. If that ignite disappears, they have to build it up again. However, if they can use the ignite on the previous pull and spread it to the new pull, and then switch, they've kind of got a pre-built ignite. It's a little bit finicky, and you have to have a pretty good fire mage to do it, but that would be the ideal scenario. So here, you have a few options for skipping. An evoker can do this skip with the rescue and a 3-person mount. Anyone who has a natural invis can walk through. You can use invis pot. Anyone who has a jump can jump over in the same way as the evoker can rescue. Shroud, obviously. Warlock Gate can also be used. There's tons of ways to do that skip. I would never recommend on any week doing double bear, because it's very time consuming. So, how this boss works, this obviously depends on your gear level, but realistically I just take all of the tank frontals to the face. So you position against the wall, stand in your consecration, and always have consecration, shield of the righteous, and one active defensive for all of the charges. So in terms of spell sequencing, what this boss is going to do is he's going to first of all jump to the farthest player, which is going to apply that grievous cat wound. So you can help the healer with that. When it jumps, so it's going to jump here, you can see on my unit frames in 3 seconds. More or less, it's not quite perfect on timers. So now you want to... The mage was fine because he had a heal absorb. You got a tank buster there, so I'm using the trinket. And you want to keep moving around the room a little bit because the adds that spawn leave this sort of ruined ground behind. You don't want to stand in that. That is by far the most damage you will take as tank or DPS or anything else. So you just kind of keep moving the boss around. CC the adds if you want, because you don't want them to get ahead of you if your party is running away. And always position so that you are not pointing the frontal at anyone, always against the wall. If you see that the person who is doing the baiting, so in this case the mage, is low on HP just before the cat jump comes out, there's a very high chance that jump will just one-shot them, because it does 70 to 80% of their health. So you want to be looking at them in advance and kind of pre-word of glorying them, and then also or afterwards throwing at least one word of glory onto them, which will help the healer get control of the grievous tick. So here again we've got frontal.
Run away.
That one's fine. So one defensive is enough. You can, as I say, you've got consecration, you've got shield of the righteous. In that case, it was either defender. You can do, with Eye of Tyr, with your trinket, with sentinel, with Guardian of the Ancient Kings. You have a lot of options. And if it's really, really bad, and you're just going to take a big hit for no reason, just bubble it. No problem at all. It won't knock you back, and it won't do any damage. Which is what I did here. So between the casts of abilities is your time that you want to kind of move the boss to a large extent. If you ever need to move the boss, do it between the charges, never when the charge is coming close. So here we have another cat leap.
3, 2, 1.
The healer got to that really quickly, so the mage is fine. Here we got another frontal. Now here, because I'm getting kind of stuck in the corner, what I'd normally do now is kind of walk around that route there you can see behind you to get around the room if you need more time. But in this case, it is a fortified key. People are kind of smashing the damage. We got through it pretty quick. So here I will pull this first pack purely because it works for countering the route, but also it's the bit of the skip that's coming up which can most kind of mess people up. Because what we'll do is you'll imprison or soothe or sap the dryad, and everyone then just walks past it thinking it's all good. These blossoms actually have a pretty high aggro range, so if people aren't careful, they'll pull a blossom, and then suddenly you're in combat, you have to kill the thing. So I think it's always safer to just kill this first pack.
3, 2,
it's a little time consuming, but it is what it is. The main thing is do a route that you're comfortable with, and you always want to be trying to do a sort of pug-proof route as possible. So once these guys are dead, what we've done now is the rogue should be sapping that dryad for us, so that it's not going to pull. We now hug the right side of the path, and then once we're all here, we wait for everyone to group together, we mount, and then the rogue will shroud us past the rest of the stuff. Basically, the purpose of this is we avoid doing any, or almost any, of the blossoms and keepers. So how the keepers work, the large centaur-like mobs there, is that they will heal infinitely all nearby blossoms until they are dead. What this means is the pull takes a really long time because you have to first single target focus the keepers, or in this case, AoE because there's 2 of them, and then AoE down all the rest of the packs. It's just very time consuming. If you can help it, you don't want to do it. So, depending on the position of this patrol, the Dryad and the 2 Blossoms, you either want to do this on its own, if it's all the way up the other end of the path, because you can't really move the Dryad. She just stands where she wants to stand. In which case, you get it done, you come down here, and then you would do all 5 of these lurker mobs together. If it's down here already, you instead want to start the pack with the Dryad and Blossoms, and then just kind of pick up the Lurkers piecemeal, because that way you can kind of manage the kicks, and you haven't got too many mobs to worry about with the Sanguine. So the Dryad obviously was the first one to die, which is good, everyone's focusing correctly. Then we have one of the Lurkers dying, which is good. I'm pretty sure next up will be Double Blossom Death. And now we still have one Lurker we haven't pulled in, so I'm going to run off in a second and grab that so we're not waiting for too long with it. Just waiting for that Blossom to die, there you go. Get these guys out of Sanguine because we do not want them all healing to full health. It's no problem when you're moving a mob as well to use Avenger's Shield before they cast, because remember, Avenger's Shield will apply a silence to the creature, which stops them from casting in the first place. Here I'm using that Divine Toll again to bring everything together. And now the group is just kind of rotating CC as much as possible, although I'm aware that a few of these casts are going off. It's just, it happens sometimes, especially in the pug. That was a very nice fire knockback by the mage there. And then we just kill this off and we're good. So in comparison to some other routes, you may find that you get to this point in the dungeon a little later than usual. That's because you are doing more trash early, if that makes sense. In theory, you should get to this point at about the same time, because you've actually done the increased trash and the skip, but at various times the timings may be off. So, going into this boss, this is the rough one. There's two mechanics that you really care about. There's a knockback, or three mechanics. So knockback like this, which is very trivial. You just get knocked back and walk back in. Do not use a horse to get back in here, it's really important. So when the flowers go down, you want to basically freedom someone else, and if you have twin freedoms, then for yourself at the same time. And that will allow people to run over all the routes, which puts them into combat and makes them attackable. So the next mechanic is that breath you saw. So basically when it's about 1 second away, you want to start using your horse and running away from it.
Watch your step.
The horse lasts for 3 seconds. The cast of the breath is 1 second. So that's why I say 1 second away and start running. You'll have full horse uptime a little bit before and a little bit after the actual breath itself. And it gives you the time to get out of it. See, like this. So you always want to run away from the group because he will turn and rotate towards you. So you do not want to turn it into people, but you can outrange it. The second mechanic is this crush and grip. So this is the thing that really I struggled with. You basically, what you need to do is, before it happens, you need to drop a consecration. I lagged horribly here, somehow I still lived. You need to drop a consecration under the boss's feet, right in the middle of his hitbox. What this will mean is when he picks you up, even though he's holding you at range, this one I'm just taking to the face, but it's fine, I've got some defensives for it. 3, 2, 1. When he's holding you at range, you still have the benefit of the consecration. If you put it just wherever you're standing, you see how he kind of drags you off to the side? You will lose your consecration buff, which is a massive, massive DR loss. In terms of how you want to handle the grip itself, the initial pickup when he picks you up, that's what applies the dot to you. So if you're immune from damage at that stage, you won't take any damage after that point.
Watch your step.
On the first one, usually I have Sentinel running, and then I'll just pop something else like I have Tear, and it's very comfortable. I'm basically taking no damage.
3, 2.
If you have Cheat Death Trinket, that is a viable defensive. You can kind of allow yourself to be ticked out by the boss. You won't die to it, and you actually come back for a bit of a DPS boost. I'm not suggesting you do this because it can be a bit dodgy, but it is a thing you can do. Your strongest two defensives are Blessing Spell Warding, even though it's physical damage, for some reason it blocks it, and also your Divine Shield, the bubble. The Divine Shield talent, Final Stand, will only aggro the boss if you're within 8 yards. So a downside to using this is if you use it when you're picked up, he will de-aggro you and start, because he's holding you more than 8 yards away from him, and he'll start meleeing your group. So it's very dangerous. So what I usually will do, if I'm going to use Divine Shield for that damage event, is I'm going to Divine Shield before we actually get picked up, and then the moment I get picked up, I'm going to click it off. So I have a little macro for that, which means that I'm immuning that initial pickup, or in other words, not getting the dot, and then I'm removing it, which means I can once again gain aggro and not, having the issue of being 8 yards away. And spell warding is just great. Like in whichever pickup you decide to use spell warding, you will take 0 damage. You'll have all the aggro. It's like it's a non-mechanic. So to explain these packs, because I've been rattling on about the boss for a bit, the little tiny slimes that we've been coming up to, they basically do damage when they die. So just be aware of that. The big guy that we've just killed, he's pretty chill. He's got a frontal you don't want to point at the group, but when he dies, he spawns all these little guys. Now, if any of them are able to complete the Blood Metamorphosis cast, then that will create a new big guy. Now, this isn't an infinite loop. The second spawned big guy cannot, again, spawn the little droplets and just keep going forever. But it is a massive time waste. So, the second part of it, when all those little lads are up, is really big on the kicks. Generally speaking, you want to avoid the second elemental there, because it's just very time consuming to do. So you wait until he patrols off to the side, and then you run through all these mobs and kill them in the boss arena. Again, everyone takes a bit of damage when they die, so the healer can deal with that. Now for this boss, very simple. You point him away from the group and wait for the breath. When the breath happens, you simply sidestep it. Nice and easy. Similar to the other boss, but this one doesn't alter to follow you, he just breaths in a direction. After the breath, there is this pushback mechanic. So you are basically being pushed away from the boss. It's very annoying if you're a caster, but fine if you're a paladin. You want to be as close to the boss as possible, because the closer you are, the less he pushes you back. After that is a big damage event on the group. This doesn't really hurt you, but it will massively hurt your DPS and healers. So if you can help them out with sacrifices, with some healing after the fact, whatever else, it's great. When that damage event happens, it will also bait, you can see behind the boss now, this kind of rockfall effect onto one player. It can happen on you, it can happen on anyone. If it happens on you, shortly afterwards, there's going to be a breath, most likely. Do not just instantly run out of it, because you don't want to point that breath at your party. If it happens on you, as I say, so you can stand in it, you can pop defensive, wait for the breath, then move. You only need to move the boss if it's becoming difficult for your party to access it because of these rockfalls. So if, for example, you're a full melee group, which we are mostly apart from the mage, if that group cannot hit the boss, they can't be in melee, then it's a really good time you need to move the boss. So again, I'm doing the mistake there myself. So I move out, realize what I've done, move back in, the breath happens, and then I move out again. It's just a bit safer for your group that way. But do pop a defensive if you plan on standing in it, because it does hurt.
Keep moving.
One thing that's also good to do, which I didn't do in this run, if you have a fire mage, the way that they work, and there's a couple of other specs like this, like sub-rogue and whatever else, they have the damage profile that we refer to as funnel. So what this means is, you can do, waiting for the breath, then moving out, you can do additional targets and hit them, which increases your damage to the primary target. In this boss, this is kind of perfect for this. So if you have a sub-rogue, if you have a fire mage, there are a couple of other specs, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. Periodically, you want to summon a few of these egg creatures. Again, I'm not doing it in this pull, but I have done it in some other pulls of this dungeon. And that gives them more targets to proc off, to do more damage to the main target. But that is situational, depending on what DPS specs you have. So here, this little pack of 3 is really annoying. It's hard to move because they all cast, they just literally cast on cooldown. And obviously they're Sanguine, so if you have the time, which we do in this case, I would recommend just standing here and killing them. Getting them dead, and then moving on. It's always better to be clean than it is to rush and make a mess of things. Nice ring by the monk there.
3, 2.
Alright. This pack, the dangerous one in this pack is the Stalker. So what the Stalker does is, on a 10-15 second interval, he will do a sort of backstab assassination. He'll jump to a random player, and he'll hit them in the back. Now you'll see that health bars on a DPS, this is going to go absolutely nuts. He will then, once he's jumped to a person, the mage has a shield going, so it's fine. But after he's jumped to someone, he'll then jump behind the tank. You want to be aware of this, because when something jumps behind you, you take a lot more damage. So you see it there, just one-shot that person. It gets messy relatively quickly. But it does pretty chunky damage to you when he jumps behind you as well. Always be quick on the reses out of combat. There's no reason to sit around. I cancelled my res there to switch as the Paladin was resing what I was resing, and then he did the same thing, so it was a bit silly, but oh well. Going into this pull, the danger here is only on the tank. There's basically 0 damage to anyone else. What happens is these things will hit you like normal, but then also they're going to apply this bite to you every 12 to 14 seconds. It's going to leave a debuff on you, a disease, which does massive damage over time. You want to basically dispel this when you have a few stacks. I wouldn't dispel it when you have 1 stack, because there's 3 more stacks you could have. However, if you have a healer that can dispel it, then you kind of just dispel on cooldown, because you get 2, they get 2. It's nice and comfortable. Finally, the last pack. This is kind of a combination of everything we've done up to this point. There's kicks to be done, there's a stalker to worry about, there's a bat for disease, all of it. The difference with the stalker in this is that he will periodically summon a decoy. So he'll still do the jumpy thing and jump people and hurt them.
3, 2, 1.
I don't think he can summon one while the old decoy is still alive, and that decoy does not count as actual mob count for the dungeon. But it is quite painful if a DPS has aggro on it, so you need to be aware when it spawns. As he jumps, so decoy spawn there, you want to make sure you get aggro on that decoy immediately, because it will just start meleeing people all over the place. And there you go, it jumped behind me, and that's a large amount of damage on me. Ooh, healer's taking tons of damage. And we're good. So, the final boss. Now the trick with this, there's 2 sort of bits that you need to be aware of. So there's the basic mechanics the boss does, which is for the first and second phase, and then there's second phase specific. So in the first phase, the boss will put a Nightmare Bolt on a player. They will take large damage.
2, 1.
They will also, after that, have to stand near a friend, otherwise they're silenced. That's why you see that sort of purple circle around them. They need to be having that circle with themselves and at least 1 friend in it. He will also do Feed on the Weak, which is basically a channeled dot, which absolutely murders a player. You can assist the healer with this, with your Word of Glories. And then the final thing, as you can see off to the right side of the screen, is Growing Paranoia. So basically, someone gets a debuff on them where they can't basically overlap with anyone. If they stand next to anyone, they will be feared and probably die, because they'll run away and not be able to heal, or they'll stand in something or whatever. Usually what you want to do is you want to have the DPS stacking with the tank in the first phase, and then whoever gets Paranoia standing on the opposite side of the boss, and then everyone still gets full uptime. Now at 50% there's a very large damage hit. I think it's Apocalyptic Nightmare or something. You want to basically sacrifice the weakest target for this, because it really hits hard. This is it coming here. After this, what now happens is he's going to periodically summon these swirlies on the ground, which are sort of falling meteors. If anyone stands in them, they will get 1 shot. If you stand in one, you are almost 1 shot, even as a tank. The second part of this is that if he stands in one, the boss, he gets a 10% damage buff, stacking up to 10 times. You do not want this to happen. So the way to do this is, there are 2 places that these swirlies can spawn. There are fixed locations in the light ground that you can currently see on the right hand side of the screen, which will spawn no matter what. There are also swirlies which will be baited onto players. So what you want to do is you want to have the boss in this dark ground, because you're immediately losing 50% of all the spawns. And then you want all the ranged players to be standing as far away as possible, because the things that they may bait will not be around the boss.
3, 2, 1.
If you only have, let's say, like you and 2 melees around the boss, you will be getting something like 30% of all the swirlies spawning near the boss that you would otherwise be getting. Now, unfortunately, this is not a particularly clean run at this point, and people are standing in things and dying. It happens. We still time it. Everyone did their best.
We must, however, stay vigilant.
And that's kind of the most you can hope for.
Inside the nightmare, Xavius remains unvanquished. The enemy you fought here.
Not everyone that you group with will know all of these mechanics, so it's always good if needed to explain them and to allow for the fact that people might not know them. Do not expect people to do things. That is the easiest way to fail.